So you're back on camera again.
Okay. Pop this little card, CF card in obviously. There's a battery on it right now. This little guy.
You need a battery on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just switch it to on.
Okay.
I don't know how well I'll be able to see that screen. Okay.
What do I need to set the controls to?
You don't. It'll record whatever's coming in through the
Okay.
stream. So just grab this firewire cable.
Okay.
It's nice because it's the same one you use for your hard drive. And then you plug it in underneath here. And this is one of those moments, but just make sure this is running while your camera's running, because you might have your camera running and think you captured everything, and then you realize that this wasn't running.
Lovely.
Just one of those things. I'm sure you'll
Figure out the hard way.
Well, it's just it's hard because
And then
anything that's off the camera, you know, it looks like you're recording on here, but
Okay.
so right now I'm gonna open up the.
Now that snaps on the back of the camera, right?
I think you can get a hot shoe mount for it. It looks like it with screws on the bottom.
Okay. I think it snaps on the back side of the camera when you're using a smaller battery.
You're talking about over the battery port?
Mm-hmm.
Think so?
Yeah. Notice when I use a smaller battery, I can just snap it onto the back of that.
That's cool. Alright, so all you have to do basically is hold down the record button.
Okay.
And it'll record whatever is on screen.
Okay.
Regardless of whether this is rolling or not. So right now you're set to HDV 1080i. And that's what you want on this, because on the menu, if I remember correctly, there's only 2 settings on here.
Okay.
And here, let me stick it right for you. Recording a screen.
Okay.
So here's the menu button, and I'm just scrolling down to the very bottom here.
Okay. Now to get the menu to pop up, you just push the button in.
Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about the EX1 and EX3. I wish they'd just keep all their menus in the same. Okay, so there's a recording format right there.
Okay.
So you have DV, that's just standard definition, you don't want to do
Okay.
that. That's the only other option is HDV 1080i.
Okay.
But you can change your frame rates. You always want to leave it on progressive. Interlace is a nuisance.
Okay.
That has the combing effect.
Okay.
It's for broadcast, and sometimes you have to put interlace, but when you're recording, just if you're shooting like interviews and stuff like that, it just depends on the project. 24 frames has a nice look to it. 30 frames will give you a smoother look, and if you do green screen, you want 30 or above.
Okay.
Because if you have a lot of motion blur in 24, and in green screen, it's really hard to get rid of some motion blur. You might have a little bit of green left, like in hands that are moving fast. So I'll just leave it on 24.
Okay.
Everything else is fine. I don't recommend using like color profiles and stuff in camera, because that's something that should be handled in post anyway. If you have a film camera, sometimes they'll use different film stocks and stuff like that, but you generally want a negative image as clean as possible.
Okay.
And then you can mess with all the colors and the fun stuff in post-production. That's just my opinion. Some
Okay.
people like to do it before, but
All right.
gives you more control. Let's see your audio. Go down to XLR, and this is where you can control like all the decibels, trim, wind, all that stuff in that menu.
Okay. Do I want to mess with it that much there, or use the manual controls on the side of the camera?
It's up to you. Like if you get like a lot of hums and noise and stuff like that, you can switch to manual, and in which case, because in auto, it'll keep doing that thing where if they stop talking, it'll start recording that low-end hum and that noise, because it's just looking for noise to record. It's
Okay.
hunting for noise. If you switch it to manual and you're comfortable with where the voice is at, it'll just stay at that level. So it won't like shift back and forth, and you won't get those weird kind of like ramping sound, you know,
Mhm.
it's like, blah, 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 where it has the.
So would you suggest usually running in manual mode on the audio side, or?
I would, and you can adjust it here.
Okay.
That's your little volume knobs. That's just me. I mean,
Okay.
worst comes to worst, I'm sure auto's just fine. You know, in a pinch.
Okay, so that takes care of the audio side. What about the video side of the house? As far as, give me a refresher course on
Well,
aperture and.
yeah, the basics. So here's your auto button right here. If you flip this to auto, let me take this off real quick. Off a menu. You flip this to auto, and you pretty much should have full auto, except for there's a way to push this lens for manual and autofocus. It's kind of a weird feature, but
So is forward auto? Or is it back?
I believe forward is auto. Let's see here. Yeah. Because I have no control over the aperture right now.
Okay.
But when I pull it back, then I do. So forward is auto all the time.
Okay.
So I just leave it back.
Okay.
That way you can control it. And leave that on manual. You can click on your white balance here.
Now with white balance, is it similar to a camera, to where I put something white in front of it and meter off of that to set my white balance?
That's probably the best way. The hard thing is you have to take into account the light source, because right now we have a tungsten light source, very yellow and warm, and very cool light coming in, especially with this blue blanket hanging up. So sometimes you get mixed light sources. So the best thing to do is just try to find a very neutral, like daylight, color balance, and then adjust it that way. But
does this have the function to be able to like switch the camera so that it's shooting for fluorescent or shooting for tungsten?
yeah, so what you have right here, and it doesn't really call them those names. It doesn't assign names.
Is it just in Kelvin?
Yeah, it's in temperature, Kelvin. But your white balance is right here. You can also go to A or B, and what's nice is, what I do is hold like a perfectly white slate, not an iPad because they generally run blue color.
Mm-hmm.
But even that manual, for instance, just hold a white piece of paper up to someone's face, because that's the subject you're shooting, and then get your white balance there, because that's your subject. That's the most important thing.
Okay.
But if you hold down the white balance button, like right here, and it starts blinking, and that's what it's reading it at. It's 5700K. And you can keep it there, and then this way it's nice because you have A and B. You have two different presets you can switch between
Okay.
on the fly. I'll hold it down towards the window,
Okay.
and let's see what I get. One bounce there. There we go. Starts blinking, 6400K. So what this little button does when you hold it down on A or B is it's assigning it a white balance value. It's reading whatever information is coming into the camera and saying, well, this is what we think white looks like.
Okay.
If you drop down to preset right there, you can adjust your white balance. You just hold this button down, and all of a sudden this will become highlighted. Right there. And then you use your little menu scroll wheel and see how it starts adjusting the Kelvin.
Oh yeah, making it warmer or cooler.
Now it's weird because it's just the opposite. So the higher the Kelvin you go, the camera, oh, I'm sorry,